In the summer of 2017, I took my first earnest steps into entering adulthood. The life that I was living before, partying all the time, living basically one day at a time, it wasn't sustainable. And I decided to actually get into a professional work field and start taking myself seriously, evaluate what's good in my life and what I want to bring with me throughout the rest of my 20s. That was around the time when I started getting back into anime. Anime was something that meant a lot to me growing up. I've always loved anime and manga, and I don't think I'll ever stop loving it. I definitely went through a period where I didn't like it. I thought it was just in a really bad spot. I didn't like a lot of the modern anime that was coming out, and I didn't like the conversations that fans were having. When I decided to return to anime, I saw that there was a growing community called Anitube. I didn't really know about Anitube before 2017. I was much more of a forum guy, so I remember a lot of conversations across different blogs and forums about anime, but to see it like move into video format and to see it get to such a professional state, even back in 2017, that to me was really fucking cool. But of course, getting back into anime after being away from it for a couple years, you don't really know where to start. I had asked a coworker who was also into anime if he could give me some suggestions on where to start, like an actual comprehensive list of what has been popular over the last like 3 to 5 years. And he said, well, here's the list, but also watch this guy on YouTube. His name is Gigguk. I remember going back to my desk and listening to Gigguk for the next few hours, and I was really impressed. Even back then, it was obvious that this was a guy who was a professional in something that's outside of anime, and he's also someone who has an aptitude for creating engaging content on YouTube. He was already big at that time, but I knew he was doing something that would eventually transcend Anitube. I work in digital marketing, and I specialize in social media content creation and curation. So seeing what Gigguk was doing was essentially what all of our top clients at the job at that time, what they were doing in order to become successful on YouTube. So I definitely saw it coming. And those early Eva and Konosuba videos, they were so cool. After about like 3 or 4 days though, I started to get a little burnt out. The conversations started to feel very cookie cutter. And it was like, okay, so I started watching a couple of these animes and they don't feel like anything different. They feel kind of worse than what was happening in anime in like 2011, 2012, 2013. But then I came across a video and it was the perfect juxtaposition to everything that I had heard earlier on in the week. Through YouTube's algorithm, I was able to come across Digibro's Ava video, and that literally changed my life. Digibro was exactly what I needed in order for me to make my return to anime. He spoke about anime in such a unique and engaging way. All of the other anitubers, they were nice, they were squeaky clean, but they didn't have an edge. They didn't have any teeth to them. There was a real lack of personality. I was looking for someone to talk about anime that wasn't super obsessed with anime, you know? I get it. Like, this is the kind of thing where to talk about it, you need to invest a lot of time. You need to watch a lot of anime. You need to read a lot of manga. But Digibro was different. He did all of those things, but he was also extremely knowledgeable about cinema. He knew a lot about music, and it wasn't just from a consumption standpoint. He made a lot of really good music during that time. When you're a YouTube content creator, you understand the drive and passion that you need when you're creating content on a regular basis. It's not that much different from being a bedroom producer. Bedroom producers need to make something work when it comes to creating music. You don't want to just work on a track for a month and never put it out there. You're not going to be able to pay your rent that way. In order to succeed, you need to put yourself out there. You need to have your personality and your style, your aesthetic ingrained in the product that you're putting out. Yes, you have to be able to talk about what's mainstream. You have to know when it's timely to create a video and have a certain aesthetic that will work for your demographics. But Digi was able to address all of these things and still have that uniqueness to him. his videos during that time were really hitting it out of the park because this man truly cared about journalism and understood how to go deep into a topic despite the fact that the person who's listening in may not know nor even care about what you're talking about. Another thing to consider is his credibility as a creator was stretching outside of anime around this time too. In 2016, he had a podcast appearance with Anthony Fantano. That to me is really amazing. I think there is a lot of overlap when it comes to music and video games and anime. Earlier on in my channel, I was kind of looking at that from a social media standpoint. How do musicians grow alongside content creators in a world that doesn't necessarily value art or paying for art or paying for the skills that creatives develop on their own spare time? So it was really awesome to see Digibro growing as a creator, talking to Fantano, who at the time was very popular, but hadn't become the apex of what he is today. This to me was the pinnacle of classic journalism set in a digital world. It all felt very rock and roll. Every video that came out, even if you didn't agree with Digi's opinion on the show, you agreed with the way that he was speaking about it. Whenever he would collaborate with others, he was able to let them speak and talk their piece, but he would still be able to add his contributions to the conversation and come out as someone who's not trying to be an asshole, but he knows his shit. So you probably should listen to his words and consider that they do have a bit more weight to it than your average anituber. As a fellow psychonaut, I feel comfort in knowing that there are other creators who don't have a fear of talking about their recreational use of whatever in their videos, and without it overtaking their personality, they can let it influence their content. I have an open mind. I would like to see more creators take aspects of their lifestyle and put it into their work and have people see like, hey, this is who I am. I'm not going to hide things that are a big part about me just because parts of society say that, no, this doesn't work for what you need to do here. And that was part of that teeth, that exploration that Digibro videos had. They felt very unique. They felt like this is going to be the coolest otaku in the room. This is an otaku that you actually want to get to know and talk to for longer than like 5 minutes. The thing is though, and I didn't know this when I started watching him, but that was around the time when Digi was falling from his peak. I believe it was August 2018 when Vlogmas was happening. It was also around that time when I started hearing about the drama outside of his work more than the work itself. As I've mentioned, I work in social media, so we have to work with PR people whenever someone gets canceled, which, believe me, it actually happens a lot more than what you hear about. But the thing is, it felt like everything at that point was just kind of like used to sustain the drama in his life. I wasn't watching Digi videos anymore for his opinions on anime and the industry and stuff on video games and music. It was, I'm seeing someone who's going through a lot of personal bullshit that they shouldn't be putting out there, and they're making their channel into some weird like theatrics vlog style drama alert thing, and I wasn't for it. I can't make any comment on the lolly stuff. I don't like lolly stuff, so I don't even really like look into the drama. But I will say, probably one of the reasons why why Yig went to shit is because like you don't die on the hill of lolly, okay? Like no matter what your beliefs are on that stance, I've spoken about this in a recent video. I don't care for lolly, it's not for me, but I'm not anti-lolly. But when people know you for a stance on something like that instead of the content that you're making, I think that speaks volumes about what you're projecting or what you're deciding to label yourself as. And, you know, sometimes you just kind of have to play ball, you know? You kind of have to consider people's comfort on certain things and not necessarily your open-mindedness to something that most people would never choose to want to be open-minded about. So yeah, the lolly arc of his was just as bad as JJK's Culling Games. And it was clear that a lot of other people weren't for it as well. Despite the fact that there were some really amazing bangers during this time, like the $5 rants, and the greater focus on music, you couldn't just turn off the drama that was surrounding Digibro and his crew. It was also around then when Digi decided to transition. Now, I have a lot of frustrations towards Trixie and her lack of accountability during the $5 rants period. I also feel that like May, or whatever her name was, she essentially became Yoko and fucked up this whole timeline, and he was like blind to a lot of it like John was. And it's frustrating because I don't want to come out and hate on a person's relationship. I think relationships are very complex and it's not fair to have people on the internet fucking commenting on it. However, I do see this in my job often. You have creators who are steadily growing and they're not able to separate their personal life, which should stay hidden, the aspects of their personal life which they can monetize, and the content that grew their channel that people originally came for and ultimately want to stick around for. And it's really disturbing because you don't see that sort of self-awareness from Trixie. She's putting all of her bullshit out there. The drama has become so much fucking bigger than anything that they were doing. I also don't want to know about your money issues. Look, I'm sorry that you weren't doing well with money. And believe me, Trixie, I'm the same age as you. I completely understand the risk that it takes to be a creative in your late 20s when you have to adhere to an algorithm that doesn't work for you necessarily, and you're getting copyright strike and the income that you're getting on a month-to-month basis isn't consistent. But that's not justification for having the meltdown that you did, because honestly, it just felt like a lot of the goodwill that was created in the community around your work, it just kind of evaporated. We all grew tired of the antics and the bullshit. And ignoring all of the performative aspects of Yig Studio during this time, the work just wasn't there. Now, Anime Alphabet was really fucking solid. That's a series I was totally looking forward to, but it was different. It was missing teeth. It lacked aggression. It didn't have that same snap, that same bite, that snarl that you expected from Yig Studio of the past. Now everything felt like I'm going to do the bare minimum to keep those that have chosen to stick around just because I want to try and win back that goodwill. I felt that there were multiple opportunities for Trixie to adjust her content and make it work for what AniTube is today, but we didn't get any of that. It just felt like this creative was completely out of touch with what works on this platform in 2022. And don't even get me started on the most recent edition of Vlogist. Yeah, there were definitely some moments that I liked, and it did kind of feel like classic Trixie at times, but then it just felt so not well thought out. And yeah, maybe you shouldn't be a critic for daily content. I still watch Moist Critical and I still enjoy that sort of content. But the expectations that Trixie set for gonzo journalism in AniTube have continued to stay extremely high. So to see them start putting out even more content, and it wasn't even reaching close to the surface of what we knew they were capable of doing, it was just really fucking disappointing. Nowadays, I don't really look towards the content that Trixie puts out as a beacon for my creativity. There are a lot of other AniTubers who are doing somewhat similar content or a similar presentation, but they add so much more of their personality to their work without losing the plot. Shabes is an incredible creator in this space, and he's very open with other smaller creators or bigger creators, basically just shining a light on them and anime and AniTube. Internet Pit Stop reminds me of all of the things that I loved about anime when I was growing up. Anime back when has experiences that I myself went through, but he's able to articulate that gives me a new scope on what anime was like for a Canadian black youth growing up during the 90s and 2000s. Manga Crash, Durcoin, Colleen's Manga Recommend... Well, no, not quite that one. I'm kidding. But there's so many other great content creators that are able to put their personality into their work, and it honestly feels more appropriate, more timely, and more gonzo than what Yig has been doing over the last little while. Needless to say, I did not care for the retirement announcement. I thought it was really contrived. I thought there was a decent amount of deflection during that video, and it's not my place to talk about someone's journey for something like this. I'm always going to be a fan of Yig Studio. I like what Trixie does, and I would love to see if Trixie ever makes a full return to creating within the anime sphere. All of the hurdles that Trixie encountered, though, are based off of problems that could have been avoided, and you hate to see your favorite content creator spiral. It's a fucking shame. I've been working on a Digibro documentary since last summer, and I'm probably going to have to scrap it now or maybe shelve it for a while, just because the entire tone of Yig Studio and that story, it's completely shifted based off of that retirement video and their explanation as to why they're going to stop being a full-time creator. I don't know. I've just kind of felt really busted about this over the last couple weeks. You hate to see someone who you look up to and someone who is capable of carving out a successful and lucrative life for themselves not hit the beats that they are capable of. But then again, this is Trixie's own doing. I guess Icarus flew way too close to the sun.